Because how many of y'all know self-love ain't easy? Okay? It's not easy. And you know why? You know why it's not easy? Because we are hardwired. Our brain is hardwired to see the negative things. We look for the things that are wrong in order to survive. It's just the brain doing its job. We're designed to be able to see the things that are wrong so we know how to respond and to protect ourselves. Okay? So we're constantly, our brain is constantly looking for the evidence that something is going wrong. It's called a negativity bias, right? But with self-love, with radical self-love, you develop a deliberate practice so that you can change the practice of your brain. You can change those habits. You can develop new habits that change how you deal with yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you relate to people, how you react to the everyday stresses of life. How do you respond to failure? How do you let go and release fear and anxiety? The things that you say to yourself, the way that you move in the world, right? When you have a practice of radical self love, when you develop new habits to give yourself that love, it's a game changer for you. Okay. So, how do you know when you need it? How do you know when you need it? So, I'm reading this book. It's an amazing book. I'm actually in this program for coaches. It's called Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Chamine. I might be pronouncing his name wrong, but he talks about we all have this judge character, and the judge, right, is this destructive sabotage that causes us to feel negative, to feel unhappy, constantly finding fault with ourselves and with other people and with our circumstances. But the thing about it is, it does it under the pretense of being very rational and reasonable and just trying to be helpful. So it's very, very subtle. The judge knows how to hide, and the judge is also invisible because we are unaware of it because you've been living this way for so long. Okay? So, how do you unravel your judge? I've been doing this work, unraveling my judge. And what I'm beginning to see is that um, the judge will push you underneath the guise that the judge is helping you. And all she does is create more fear, more pressure, this undue stress and exhaustion. Right? Your judge will like push you and drive you. Now, if this sounds familiar to you, it's because there's nothing new under the sun. And as I'm reading this, I relate to it as, the judge being fear. You know how I always say there's really just two emotions. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says this, there's just two emotions, basically, fear and love. Either you're living in fear or you're living in love. And everything else, falls underneath the umbrella of those two dominant emotions. And our judge, right, operates from that place of fear, the place that drives you to succeed and to do things, but it does it in a way that you're driven in a way that doesn't feel good, right? That has a lot of anxiety attached to it, fear of failure, fear that if you mess up, right, something's gonna happen, and you're always looking and that negative bias, looking for something, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's not a very not a very wonderful place to live. But we live like that, right? With a practice of radical self-love, you can create some deliberate ways to break that pattern. and to begin to operate from unconditional love, where there are no conditions, right? And you can accept yourself, accept your flaws, accept your failures, accept your missteps without guilt, without judging yourself. So you may not always recognize when the judge is in control, especially if it's all that you've ever known. Like how can you tell? How can you tell that this is happening? One of the most powerful ways is to develop an awareness of listening to your body. Oh my goodness, our feelings, our emotions are so powerful. What's happening in our body is so powerful. How do you feel? How do you feel in your body? See, the judge makes you feel small. Fear is constrictive. Love expands you. So check in with yourself. How do you feel when you're pursuing your goals? Do you feel big? Do you feel small? How do you feel in your relationships? Do you feel expansive? Do you feel constricted? Right? How do you feel when you look at yourself in the mirror? How do you feel? Do you feel big? Do you feel expansive? Or do you feel small? Do you look away? Are you able to look at yourself and see who you are and appreciate all of who you are? Where does your judge show up in your life? Where? Where does your judge show up in your life? And when you can develop this awareness of, of how the judge is showing up for you in your life, then you can do the opposite. You can interrupt that. Because the beautiful thing about the brain, even though we have this negative bias, it also has the ability to change. Yeah, we can change. We can adopt new thought patterns, and we can train our brain just like we train our muscles to overcome those negative thoughts, to overcome the things that our judge would try to tell us. And it's easier than you think. It's easier than you think. Yes, it does take effort. Okay, maybe I should say it's more simple. It's simpler than you think because it does take effort to be consistent, but it doesn't take massive effort on an everyday basis. If you just do a few little simple things every day that are actually fun and enjoyable, you will begin to change the neural pathways in your brain, change your wiring. Yeah, it's an amazing practice. But this only comes when you're ready to say, I want something different. And I can have something different. So just start there. I want to invite you just to start there. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Okay? Where does your judge show up in your life? How can you strengthen your love muscle? How can you strengthen that place that moves from a place of love and non-judgment and grace and wisdom and guidance? How can you begin to develop those habits and those routines to receive the unconditional love? What will you start to do differently when you recognize the judge coming in to sabotage your life? It doesn't have to be that way. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to talk to me in the comments. Drop some comments, and it's 8 o'clock. I'm late for a meeting. I'm here at the office. I have a meeting with my students at 8 o'clock. I said, let me go on quick before the meeting. So I'm going to cut this short, but drop your comments in the chat and I'll come back and respond to you. All right. All right, beautiful people.